Hare Krishna, welcome everybody. Today's topic is Krishna, the bestower of supreme knowledge. And the verse that we are discussing today is from the chapter number 14, verse number 1. Here is the verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam vivasvan manave praha manurikshvakave bravit. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So what this essentially means is that originally this knowledge of yoga is coming from Krishna. Krishna is the original spiritual master. He is called as a Chaitya Guru. So we know that the knowledge, we must take it from the spiritual master, correct? And the spiritual master of all the spiritual masters, or the original spiritual master, who is the reservoir of knowledge, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So from this verse we can understand that. How do we understand that? Because Krishna is stating that Imam Vivasvate Yogam. He's saying, I gave this imperishable knowledge of the science of yoga, imperishable science of yoga. Imam Vivasvate Yogam. And he's saying this imperishable science of yoga, I have given it. Proktavan means I spoke. Aham. Avyayam. And also he's saying that this is avyayam. Avyayam means something which is never lost. Imperishable. Right? It is something like eternal knowledge. Eternal knowledge of Bhagavad-gītā is given by Lord Sri Krishna. And whom did he give to? Originally, he gave it to the sun god. Right? Vivasvan, the sun god. And then what happened afterwards is the knowledge has been passed on under the Guru Parampara. So what is that Parampara? That is the Parampara of the Rajarshis. First sun god, next Manu, next Ikshvaku, like that, and so on. That's how it goes. Right? So what we have to understand is, we all know that Bhagavad-gītā was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna. But it is not that Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gītā for the first time. He has already spoken it to the sun god. Because Krishna is eternal, he is the Supreme Lord. And he is the supreme reservoir of knowledge. He has already spoken it to the sun god. And that has been coming in the disciplic succession. But the chain of disciplic succession got broken. That we see in the next verse. It says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mata yogo nashta parantapa. That means this disciplic succession was there, in which this science of yoga or the Bhagavad-gītā was being received. And then it got lost, or in the course of time the succession got broken. Right? So succession got broken in the course of time. Therefore the science appears to be lost. Sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. So it was lost because there was a break in the disciplic succession. Right? So the essence of this verse is that this is there from very long ago. That's called Sanatana. That's why we call our dharma as Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. Something you cannot measure, that this time, that time, like that. But it is eternally present. Bhagavad-gītā is always present. But in the beginning, Krishna gave this to sun god. Right? And it is only Krishna who can give this knowledge, and nobody can give this knowledge as perfectly as Krishna can. Because Krishna is full of opulences. And one of the 6 opulences that he has, Shad Aishwarya, is Jnana. So he is a reservoir of knowledge. Because he is the reservoir of knowledge, he can give Bhagavad Gita. Let us see the purport here. It says, here we find the history of Bhagavad Gita traced from a remote time when it was delivered to the royal order of the planets, beginning from the sun planet. So every planet has a presiding deity. Just like the sun planet, there is a presiding deity, the sun god. And then the kings of all planets are especially meant for protection of the inhabitants. Therefore, the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad Gita in order to be able to rule the citizens and protect them from material bondage to lust. It's an important point. What it essentially means is the administrators of all the planets, not only the Earth planet, the other planets too, the administrators like the kings particularly should know about Bhagavad Gita. It is important that they understand Bhagavad Gita so that they understand and they protect people from lust. Okay, they engage people in Varnashrama Dharma so that the citizens are protected from lust and from going to hell. And to elevate them to higher platforms, to the stage of Brahma Bhuta stage and beyond, to become Krishna conscious. Right? That's the idea. And then it goes on, it says, human life is meant for cultivation of spiritual knowledge in eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart this lesson to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. So this Bhagavad Gita actually must become a subject for all human beings in the world. Not just India, not just Hindus, but to everybody. What's that reason? Because there is a spiritual knowledge inside it. Okay, it's like the reservoir of spiritual knowledge. So this is a very essential message is there in Bhagavad Gita. The essential message is that we are not the body. Everybody in the world, including all the religions, all different sects, whatever kind of faith they may be having, this is a universal message that they are not their bodies. They are not their bodies, but they have falsely identified themselves as bodies, and by following the so-called religions which do not explain these fundamental facts, there's no point of that. So we can say that the kind of religions that we have today are sectarian, and we can call them some kind of cheating religious principles or the Kaitava Dharma. The cheating religious principles are only some kind of shallow rituals without any deep spiritual culture. But this Bhagavad Gita begins with this most fundamental fact that we are not the body. This is the spiritual knowledge. And we know that we are eternal spiritual beings, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Soul, Super Consciousness. Our consciousness must be dovetailed towards that super consciousness. This is the message of Bhagavad Gita. It's a universal message, but unfortunately people take it as a sectarian message. It is not. Let us continue and see here. It says, especially the executive heads of all the states are obliged to impart this knowledge to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. That means, in other words, executive heads of all states are intended to spread the science of Krishna consciousness so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path, utilizing the opportunity of the human form of life. In fact, the spiritual leaders or the material leaders have no idea absolutely whatsoever what is the purpose of human form of life. Only Bhagavad Gita gives us this knowledge that there are 8,400,000 species of life, 84 lakh species of life we have, And among them, human birth is very special, right? And why is it special? It is special because we can inquire about the absolute truth and we can attain the absolute truth. That is the message of Bhagavad Gita. So this message must be given by the executive heads to all their citizens. Instead of giving them some kind of freebies like liquor or further implicating them in sinful reactions or giving them some other kind of freebies just for the sake of political mileage, the politicians or the state administrators must think deeper and see how can we liberate all these people from the suffering that they're having. And the real liberation from the suffering can be attained by human form of life simply by following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, the instructions of Lord Krishna. And again here it said, in the beginning Krishna gave to the sun god Vivasvan. And the sun is supposed to be the origin of all the planets. Why sun god? Why not to some other planet? Why not to Chandra? Why not to somebody else like Buddha or anybody else? Because sun is considered to be the king of all the planets. Stating from the Brahma Samhita, it says, Yachakshurevas Yachakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rashesha Tejaha Yasyagnyaya Brahmati Sambrata Kala Chakro Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, who is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. Krishna also confirms the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, that I am the splendor of the sun and the moon. I am the sun, he says, right? So the energy of the sun, the light of the sun is actually a reflection of the light that is coming from the spiritual worlds. So therefore, here it is said the sun planet has got a representative or a king. The king is called as Vivasvan. Presently is called Vivasvan. So Krishna gave the knowledge to Vivasvan. The sun and all the planets are rotating under the order of Krishna. Krishna says in the Kapila Gita that Madbhayat, he says, because of my fear does the sun rise. Because of my fear does the wind blow. Because of my fear does the water flow. Because of my fear does the rains come on time. It is because of the fear of Krishna. We see this, it's easy to understand. In an office setting, the employees are always reluctant to work. And whenever the manager comes or the boss comes, then everybody starts to work because of the fear of the manager. So similarly, it is the same thing here, that because of fear of Krishna, all the planets are in their position, right? So here, sun god is also working because of the fear of Krishna, and under the direction, control of Krishna, under the order of Krishna. So the first disciple of Bhagavad Gita is Vivasvan, the sun god. That means this knowledge is eternally present, and it will be eternally was present, eternally will be present, right? So therefore, it is not a speculative treatise for a mundane scholar, but it is a standard book of knowledge coming from time immemorial. So what it proves is that this is not some kind of a academic treatise for a mundane scholar who simply wants to make a living out of it, write some papers, write some books, and simply engage his brain in some kind of speculation. It's not meant for any kind of speculation here. There's no point of speculation. It's a standard book of knowledge. So every verse of Bhagavad Gita is perfect and it is beneficial for the humanity. And then there is more detail in the Mahabharata Shanti Parva. We can see here, Treta Yugadau Chatato Vivasvan Manave Dadau Manuscha Loka Bhrityartham Sutayeksha ekshvakave dadau ikshvakuna cha katito vyapya lokan avastita. That means in the beginning of the millennium known as Treta Yuga, this was delivered by Vivasvan to Manu. Krishna gave the knowledge to Vivasvan, sun god, and in the beginning of Treta Yuga, Vivasvan gave it to Manu. Manu, who is the father of mankind, he gave it to his son Ikshvaku Maharaj. Ikshvaku Maharaj, and who is the forefather of the Raghu dynasty in which Lord Ramachandra has appeared. That means Bhagavad-gītā has existed in the external society, outside the human society, with the sun god since a long time, and it came to the human society from the time of Maharaj Ikshvaku, right? Because it was given to Manu, and from Manu gave to Maharaj Ikshvaku, who belongs to the humans, right? So if you make some kind of a calculation, rough calculations are made here, that approximately this knowledge of Gita was spoken by the Lord at least, it says, 120 million years ago. 120 million years ago. So that turns out to 12 crore years. So it is said here that it has been extant for at least 2 million years. So after the 12 crore years, again 2 million years, another 20 lakh years, it was extinct. And then just 5,000 years ago, Krishna has spoken this knowledge again. Okay, it's not that he's speaking for the first time. There are some people who are objecting that when Arjuna asked Krishna for the second time to repeat Bhagavad Gita, he said, I cannot remember. But here is the point. Krishna has already spoken Bhagavad Gita, and he will speak it when necessary. It is not that whenever Arjuna wants it, he will not repeat it. It is not like that. It is like, I forgot the message, what you said, can you please repeat it? It is not to be repeated like that, right? So whenever Krishna decides, whenever he wants to say, he will speak it. And whenever it is necessary, whenever the disciplic succession is broken, at that time, Krishna will speak it again. That is the point. So the rough estimate is that according to Krishna himself, who is the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, this is the rough estimate of the history of Bhagavad Gita, right? So the sun god, from the sun god is coming the Surya Vamsha Kshatriyas, right? Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, this knowledge is apaurusheya. Apaurusheya means superhuman. This is not written by a human. One of the biggest objections that people ask or they present is that this book is written by a human being. Human beings have created religion. Why should I follow a book which has been written by a human being? It is not written by a human being. It is apaurusheya. It is spoken by the Supreme Lord himself, and which has been documented by Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is also the literary incarnation of Krishna. So he is an avatar of Krishna. Therefore, it is not an ordinary person who has written it. Even in the ordinary calculation, if you want to compare the scholarship of Vyasadeva with the greatest scholars who are present in the material world presently, it is very easy. Vyasadeva wins hands down. Because Vyasadeva has written Mahabharata, it spans to 1 lakh verses. There is nobody in the entire world who has written 1 lakh verses poem, and not even close to that. The Western world, the biggest poem is hardly 5,000 or 10,000 or even less than that verses in Greek or something, right? And the largest one clearly is the Mahabharata, which goes to 1 lakh verses, unimaginably big. And it is said that it is not even the full Bhagavad, it's not even the entire Mahabharata. It is only those verses which have remained in the human planet for Kali Yuga. In fact, all the Vedas, there are crores and crores of verses which are present in the other lokas, which are not present with us right now. Okay. So this is the point that these Vedas, and particularly Bhagavad Gita, it is apaurusheya, not spoken by a human being, who is having the 4 types of defects. Vyasadeva does not have the 4 types of defects. Obviously, Krishna doesn't have those defects because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To err is human. Human beings make mistakes, and then they have a cheating propensity. They have imperfect senses and they become illusion. But Krishna, he has got perfect senses. He does not become illusion. He does not cheat, right? And he doesn't have these kind of 4 defects that the human beings have. He doesn't have imperfect senses. He has got perfect senses. So whatever Krishna speaks is perfect. So it is not that some human being has written it. So it is a superhuman knowledge. And the more we read, the more we realize. Okay, when I started reading Bhagavad Gita, it was a very dense textbook for me, and it can come in a pocket size, right? In a pocket dictionary, kind of a small size. But when I started reading it first, it was so heavy, so heavy, so heavy. It took me really long time. It used to take me 1 verse to digest it. It used to take me a couple of days. So that is the density or the weight or gravity of these shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, and they're so relevant to our day-to-day work. Because Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking about some fundamentals about our identity. See, the first thing that we give to anybody is identity. When a child is born, we give an identity to the child. We give a name. We give a birth certificate, and then we do the naming ceremony and give a name. And then you say, you are this. When somebody joins a company, then we